Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome to episode 190 of the Thank God recently back to our original name podcast. Hooray! The Secrets of a Witch podcast with myself, Sabrina Scott, where I talk all about life, love, spirituality, witchcraft, magic, tarot, mediumship, divination, trauma, healing, and everything in between, my friends. We are fucking back. I can't tell you how good it feels to be able to actually say the name for this podcast as it was originally designed after almost 2 years of waiting for the trademark to finally be accepted by the Canadian government. I'm just so happy, and I've received so many positive messages from so many of you, my lovely listeners, also being excited about being back to the original name. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much for reaching out. Thank you so much for sharing this podcast with your friends and people you care about and people that you know will be interested in the topics I talk about on this show. So thank you so much. And I got some really amazing feedback from the episode from last week, why 2025 should be your villain era. And I am going to start off this podcast by warning you guys that, yeah, today I'm going to be starting off my villain era with a very sassy podcast episode. And I kind of hemmed and hawed a bit. I talked about this last year quite a bit without really naming names, right? I don't really usually like to name names because I think oftentimes the critiques that we make, the things I have to say, all of this, it exists outside of just any one person, right? So calling someone out or putting someone on blast or critiquing someone or whatever way we want to frame it, I don't think it is always necessary to name who we're talking about because sometimes it's just the ideas that are the most important part of it, right? It's not necessarily, oh, so and so said this, so and so said that. But today I am going to name names because I'm in my villain era. Welcome to 2025, Sabrina. That's what we're doing. And today I wanted to talk about why I am, after God, like a decade of following this astrologer, breaking up with Chani Nicholas. So, some of you guys probably don't know who this is, but I think a lot of you guys probably do. So, if you don't, that's cool. It doesn't really matter, but it also kind of does. I would say Chani is by far the most famous astrologer working today. She especially is really famous on the left. And I remember back like a decade ago, if not longer now, geez, time flies, when like, she used to have this kind of astrology blog, and I don't even remember if it was every week or every full moon or every new moon or whatever, she would do these like really great astrology forecasts for the different signs. And it was my favorite part of the week, like it was really grounding, it was really fun. I really liked her perspective at the times. I was super like lefty left on at the time. And, it was really cool to have this astrologer who, was seemed like a pretty good astrologer, you know. And it was cool to see her rise and gain popularity and gain momentum and become mainstream. Like she has become incredibly mainstream. In 2019, I think it was, I even went to LA to go to the Survivor Wealth Symposium, and I was very blessed to receive a scholarship from her and her wife's organization. And I really admire the work they do. They basically are helping survivors of sexual violence and gender-based violence get back on their feet. So, like, I really do respect that, and I do believe that economic justice in terms of finances is very healing, a form of healing justice for survivors of rape and violence and stuff like that, right? And back in 2019, I did buy one of their sweaters that says economic justice is healing justice. And I was healing from my sexual assaults and rapes and all of that. And so it was meaningful to me, that people were doing this work in the world. And so anyway, I went to LA specifically for this symposium, and I got to meet Chani and I got a photo, and many of you guys on Instagram will know the exact photo I'm talking about. I'm grinning ear to ear, and it was a really transformational, fun conference, and I had an amazing time. And I do feel very blessed to have had that opportunity to experience that. It was really fantastic. And do I have some critiques of the symposium? Of course I do. But overall, I would say it was a really meaningful experience for me to go. And so this is not someone I've ever put on a pedestal. I don't really tend to do that. I like to see people in their full humanity. But what I will say is that this has been someone that I really admired. It was really cool and meaningful to me, even as a business person, to see this individual gains so much momentum and success with a spiritual based business. Like, I find that even still pretty amazing that she's been able to do that. That being said, I think it is time this year for me to break up with Chani. And by that, like, we're not dating, obviously. She doesn't fucking know who I am, and that's cool. I've subscribed to her app for a few years now, and I will not be renewing my subscription. I think it ends in August. So I've got some time to find a new astrologer, or I've been joking with some of my friends, like, this is probably just the universe pushing me to take my own astrology practice a little bit more seriously and go a bit deeper than I have done. So that being said, why am I breaking up with Chani Nicholas? Why am I breaking up with this famous astrologer? So what I want to talk about here, because it's not really about her, though it also kind of is. But a lot of people are doing this. A lot of people in the spiritual community are doing this. A lot of astrologers are doing this. And I have a problem with this behavior that I'm going to be talking about because I feel that it really does not reflect well on the spiritual community. It does not reflect well on witchcraft or witches or astrologers or astrology. It makes us all look very stupid. And that obviously is a conversation that I've got a personal stake in, because one of my whole main things is I do believe you can be incredibly intelligent, you can be scientific, you can be academic and spiritual, you can be rigorous and spiritual. You don't have to be kind of dumb or clueless or not a careful, rigorous, rational, logical, reasonable, measured person. Like, you can be spiritual and measured and logical. Like, it's not just that all spiritual people are total flakes and see what they want to see, and it's all just self-delusion. And so to me, this is an important thing, right? Because I do want more people to care about spirituality. I think that's great. Spirituality has grounded me so much through so many horrible things, through trauma, through sexual abuse, through all of these like horrible parts of my life. And the reason I got through all of that stuff really is my spiritual practice. And thinking about astrology and thinking about the moon and thinking about the planets and thinking about my own personal astrology and how does that interact with the world and witchcraft and all of this stuff, right? So I take spirituality so seriously that I do feel like I have to kind of draw a line in the sand and really draw attention to some behavior among someone who's really respected in the industry. I just I and just say that this is not what I'm about, and this is not what I believe the community, the industry, the practice does not need this way of existing. So what am I talking about? You guys are probably like, Sabrina, get to the fucking point. So I think the best way of encapsulating what I'm talking about is reading out loud an excerpt from her January to March um, astro forecast thing on the app. So this is just a little excerpt. Again, I do have paid for a membership for this. It's just a small excerpt, so hopefully that's fine for me to read. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Um, and so I'm just going to read this and then we'll talk about what it means. But the very short version is that this person basically has had to redo the forecast because the person that she thought was going to win didn't win. So let me just read this out loud and then we'll talk about it. And I'll get into why I think this is a massive problem and a huge red flag. And just, I don't believe that this has any place in spiritual community. This is just my opinion. So, all right, so here we go. This is going to be me just reading this word for word for word. So let's just pull this up on my computer so I can read it. Okay. So I'll let you guys know when I'm done quoting her, but the quoting is going to begin right now. Okay, so here's the quote. Quote, I just wanted us to be located in possibility before we go into talking about 2025 and the astrology of the year, because we are entering into this year with some very sobering truths. One of which is that those who have come into power recently, those that are coming into power at the beginning of this year, do not have our best interests in mind. And it is going to be up to us to collectively demand every single moment of every single day that it is all of us or none of us, and we have to be anchored first and foremost in our imagination and the possibility of what could happen. 2025 is a banner year, astrologically speaking. 2025 is home to some major, major changes. I was hoping on a personal level that we would go into this year with as much of our tools, traditionally speaking, as possible, like democracy, and that didn't happen. The 2024 elections happened and we got what we got. The systems that we live within are not functioning, so we do need major change. That is an absolute. We are also going into a year where there's going to be massive change. I personally think that the powers that be are going to try to use that for their own good, for the good of the very wealthy, and against the needs of the masses. This is what I think is going to happen. You might disagree with me, and that's fine. The astrology says this is a game-changing year. And the next part is, I'm just pulling it up. So if you're looking at the year with some dread, with some despair, with some reticence, understandable. I am too. And I know that those that have power economically, governmentally, however you want to look at it, are not the only ones that are making change happen this year. Everything that we do makes a mark this year. Blah blah blah. Talking about changing signs. This is obviously my take. Hold on, let me get back to the interesting part that I'm quoting here. Okay, so she says, and I quote. And this means that whatever we do to resist evil, to resist tyranny, to resist dictatorship, to resist turning on each other, makes a mark for years and years and years to come. We are in an exceptionally pivotal moment in history, and let's see. Okay. And this is the part I want to draw you guys' attention to. She says, and I quote, I recorded a version of this in August because I was trying to get ahead of my work, get my teams ahead, and get things out of the way. And now I'm having to re-record it because I'm recording this from November, late November of 2024. And with the election results in the United States, it's obvious that whatever is going to happen in 2025 is going to be much more severe and complicated and devastating, and probably volatile and disorienting than it would have been if Kamala Harris would have won. I think that's a very fair statement to make. And because this astrology demands change, it demands that we change the ways in which we are looking at the problems we face. And let me just make sure that is all that I wanted to read from this. Yes. That's all I wanted to read. End quote. End quote. So, okay, why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? So, I've got a lot of things to say about this, but I just wanted to read out that for anyone who is lacking context about what I'm talking about here and the critiques that I'm making as a spiritual teacher, person, leader, I guess, in this space, right? So, there's a lot to be said. So obviously, you guys know I live in Canada. I was raised in the United States, and so I've got kind of one foot in each country. I kind of know both of these countries pretty well. That being said, I do find it very interesting when people are very United States centric in the way that they think. And yeah, of course, we all can acknowledge that the politics of the United States is going to have a global ripple effect in some sense. That being said, the world really does not revolve around the United States of America. Obviously, it's crucial, and I love my Americans. I do feel very American in a lot of ways, and I love America. However, to me, this is really lacking a global perspective, which I think is problem number one. It does act as though, United States is the only relevant country in the world, which of course, as we know, it isn't. It's incredibly relevant, of course, to everyone. However, it's not the be all end all of everything. And I do find it very interesting that when someone, this, Chani, when she's got this massive audience, huge, and I would not be shocked if she has a multi-million dollar business. And she is basically preaching her politics to her audience. And I guess we all kind of do that in our own way. Like everyone kind of knows my politics, and of course I'm going to be interpreting things from that lens. However, I do think it's very toxic. And I know that word is a little bit overused, but I do think it's very toxic when she says, and I quote, I was hoping that we would go into this year with democracy, and that didn't happen. And I find that very fucked up because Donald Trump, like it or not, did win the popular vote in the United States of America. He won the election in a landslide. Like it was not even close. And so to call a democratically elected individual to say that this democratic election process um, shows that we actually don't have democracy in the United States. To me, that is just a lie. It's so being a sore loser, which it's a free country. You're allowed to be a sore loser. But to say that democracy has failed when the candidate that you don't like wins the popular vote of the country that you live in, and then you're putting that allegation into your astrology forecast on an app that people pay for, like, I find that a bit strange. I find that a bit strange, especially as someone who lives in Canada and who is a conservative, and I'm proudly a conservative as well. And I'm more than happy to subscribe to and listen to folks and pay for the content of people who, yeah, maybe we're not exactly on the same political spectrum, but until this point, I have respected her as an astrologer, right? But now she is really making these false allegations. Like she is saying that democracy no longer exists in the United States. And that is just not true. It just isn't true. She calls the new administration evil. She says, let's see what else. I'm just rolling through the quotes that I took out. And I just don't think that's a very responsible thing to do. I don't really see the evidence of that. Yes, so here's the quote. She says, and I quote, um, whatever we do to resist evil, to resist tyranny, to resist dictatorship, et cetera, end quote. And those are really strong words to use to talk about a democratically elected government. Like, you can dislike it all you want, but to call the United States a dictatorship and evil and tyranny, to me, that, first of all, has no place in an astrological forecast, first of all. Second of all, it shows a massive ignorance of global geopolitics as well as the history of this planet that we live on. There's many dictatorships that still exist today, and there are many over the course of history of this planet. And so anyone who knows anything about history and global politics will know that the United States, however we might want to critique it, it really does not fit that description. It just doesn't. And it bugs me when people don't understand that. And she's really showcasing her ignorance here, and also a very extreme bias. And this is all stuff that is not based in fact. And furthermore, it's not based in history, and even more than that, it's not based on anything actually astrological. This is just her pumping out her political ideology, and she seems so blind, if you'll excuse the perhaps problematic metaphor there, or whatever it is, simile, metaphor. Um, she seems very blind to the extent to which her ignorance gets in the way of saying reasonable things that are based in reality. And again, like, people are more than welcome to have their opinions, but this is really not what I am paying for in a fucking astrology forecast app. And so my other critique here, so I'll quote this part again. Let's see. She says, quote, "I recorded a version of this in August, but I'm re-recording it in late November. With the election results in the United States, it's obvious that whatever is going to happen in 2025 is going to be much more severe and complicated and devastating than if Harris would have won." End quote. And so to me, that shows that she is admitting that she was not doing her forecast based on actual astrology. She admits it. She admits that her old forecast that she recorded is not based on astrology, and it was based on her own political wishes, hopes, and delusions. And what basically she's admitting as well is that this forecast that I'm reading from right now, the forecast for the rest of the year in the app, is also still based on those political leanings, that political interpretation, and her own ideology. She did all the forecasts as though Kamala Harris was going to win. I'm sure it was a much more jolly, positive change, yada yada type of astrological forecast. And now the forecast is basically like doom and gloom. She had to re-record it because someone else won. That isn't astrology. It isn't. It is just ideology and wishful thinking and delusion. And so that has made me completely lose any faith in this person as an astrologer, as an astrological source, which is very disappointing. I thought she would have more integrity as an astrologer, as a leader, than this. But basically, what she's doing is she's admitting that she's not actually doing astrology. What she's doing is political ideology. And that is not really, I don't really want to pay for that, because that's not what I go to her for. I go to other thinkers for that type of thing. And I really just don't respect this as a way of doing things. And so I just find it very disappointing. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you don't have a membership to the app. I would say don't get one. It's like not worth it, especially this is her admitting she's not really doing astrology, she's just doing politics. You can listen to the public podcast, Astrology for the Week Ahead, and she does have this little disclaimer on many of the episodes if you go back. And the disclaimer basically says, like, hey guys, sorry, I recorded this before Donald Trump won, and I know I sound kind of optimistic, so please don't be mad at me because you guys are going to assume that I'm supporting a quote unquote fascist dictator. Um, please be nice to me. Please don't tank my business. Please, like, be nice, etc. And it's very interesting to me that she, on like a business sense, that she feels that she has to do this little disclaimer you know? So to me, as a business person, that shows that Chani, bless her heart, uh, who knows what her actual politics are, but she does feel like she has to toe the line. It seems like to me. And again, this is just my interpretation of what I'm hearing on those podcast episodes, and then on this app that I've read out. And again, that is not astrology. That's not what spirituality and all of this stuff is really about. The astrological forecast, and whether you are positive and optimistic or negative and pessimistic based on the astrology alone, that should not change based on an election result, in my humble opinion. And so I just don't believe this type of behavior has any place in a responsible spiritual leader's toolkit. And so it does pain me to kind of level this critique publicly. Chani, if your team is listening, sorry, not sorry. You have to be willing to listen to critique, I guess, at some point. And if some of y'all are listening and you're gonna be like diehard Chani fans, that's totally cool. It really doesn't bug me. Do what you want, Again, it's a free fucking society. Do your thing. Uh, but for me, what she's basically admitted to with all of this is that her work as an astrologer is based on politics and woke ideology, than on the nitty-gritty of what is actually happening on astrological level, and that just is not really something I have any interest in. And I don't feel like it always used to be this way with her work. This seems like quite a recent inflection, and I just find it very disappointing. And it just is something I wanted to talk about because I do think it is relevant for many of us in, first of all, spiritual industries, but also for anyone who is looking at, who should I get my astrological information from? Because she is the biggest figure in the space right now and has been for some time. And I do respect that she's been able to build this empire. I do really respect that. But I really don't respect that her work is, in my opinion, no longer clearly based on actual astrology. It's just based on politics. And again, that's not like, it's just not the vibe, at least as far as I'm concerned. So that's my critique. I just find it very disappointing. I just find it very disappointing. Obviously, you guys do what you want. If you guys are still die-hard Chani people, that's cool. We can still be friends. It's fine. But do look at the astrologers, do look at the people that you listen to. And of course, I talk about politics pretty often, and it is what it is. Everyone is going to have their own inflection. Everyone's going to have their own perspective. And that's cool. Like she's allowed to interpret things in the way that she does. Like it's, she's not breaking any laws. It's all good. But, we each get to decide what we are down for and what we're not. And yeah, many people have walked away from my work when I came out in support of Israel. I lost a lot of audience due to that. I lost a lot of friends due to that. And I lost clients due to that. And for me, that's something I just am okay with because I'm not okay with keeping my mouth shut on how I feel in order to keep an audience, right? And so, you know, it is what it is. I'm sure Chani is also going to lose some audience due to her stances on some of these things. But I think what's different, let's say, between Chani's handling of things and how I'm handling things, I've lost people just due to my politics, not due to anything that I teach or how I teach it. But with what she's doing, it's like the politics are actually getting in the way of doing proper astrology. That's kind of how I see it. Whereas like my politics don't get in the way of me teaching proper witchcraft. Excuse me, proper witchcraft. So that's a little bit of a difference. Again, like whatever, support who you want to support. It's all good. But that's just a critique that I felt like I really needed to get out there and just talk about how this political moment, this extreme polarization that we're seeing in so many places, but particularly in the United States and in Canada as well to some extent, this extreme polarization, and I'm sure in the UK we see this as well. I don't know about every single context around the globe, obviously, but we are seeing some extreme polarization and with the United States and Canada, especially, I've seen a lot of dehumanization of people who feel differently politically. And I feel like folks have just been so far apart. And I wish that we could just all not be so polarized. I know it's maybe a bit of a naive wish, but I do feel it's so important to be able to talk about things in a sober way and not just be kind of bombastic and extreme with the words that we're using to label each other. You know, words like fascist, dictator, blah, 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 like stuff like this. Like, it gets to be really extreme, and I would love it if we could all collectively get back to a point where words actually had the meaning that they actually have. Like the way the word genocide gets thrown around is very clear that most people using that word right now in the public sphere don't actually know what that word means. Same thing with the word dictatorship, same thing with the word fascist. Like most people, it seems like, have not picked up a history book in the past like few years, let alone the past decade, let alone a fucking dictionary, you know? So I would like it if we could all just fucking talk to each other without being so extreme and stretching words to mean things that they don't mean. And again, I love talking about politics. I love thinking about politics, but I definitely do not want to be preached to in an astrology forecast where someone is admitting that they had to re-record it because their candidate did not win. Like, I just find that really fucked up. Um, you guys may not know this, but I do not script any of my episodes of this podcast. I don't script any lives that I ever do. I don't script my courses. I don't script anything, and I do everything in one take. I have never re-recorded anything in my life, nor will I ever. What you see is what you get. And I stand by what I have to say. And if I fuck up in my interpretation of something, you can bet that I'm going to leave that thing up. And I'm also going to publicly talk about why I changed my mind. And that is not what we're seeing from Chani or astrologers that are behaving in this way. She's not the only one. She just is the one that I happen to have followed for a long time. So she's the one that I'm able to use as an example of this behavior. But talking to some friends about this, it's clear that she isn't the only one that is doing this. So that's the episode, you guys. That's my thoughts. You know, not the most pleasant topic, but it is something that I do think in the spiritual space we all do need to be aware of. Who are we getting our information from? What is their spin? And are they able to do astrology, you know, without having it be this political brainwashing exercise? You know, can it just be astrology? Like people can have their politics, but you know, if you have to re-record something because your candidate lost, it's not a good sign in terms of you're you're sticking to the facts, and nothing but the facts in terms of astrology. So I just want to leave that there, something to think about. I don't mean any shade on anyone, but it's just an example of something I've seen in the space that is bugging me, and it's just, I've come out as being a big supporter of hers in the past, and so I just really had to get on the record this critique because it is a problem for our community, and that's my thoughts. Okay, y'all. So there is, what else I want to say? There's a few spots for tarot readings for the year ahead that I still have. So if you do want to book one, I think I've got 2 or 3 spots open the rest of the month. You can do so at sabrinamscott.com/readings for your tarot reading. Book the 2 hour reading and we'll get you sorted. And what else? I'm going to be on the Coast to Coast AM radio show next week, which I'm really excited about. So it's going to be 2 hours from 3 a.m. till 5 a.m. on January 16th. So that is technically their January 15th show because I believe it starts at 10 p.m. Pacific time. But from my time zone, I am going to be on the radio at 3 to 5 in the morning. And I am exhausted just thinking about it. That's like crazy early. And I have to start training and stay up late. And I know I'm going to sleep all day after that. But I believe the first hour is going to be discussion questions about tarot and witchcraft and stuff like that. And then the second hour, you guys can actually call in if you want and get a tiny little tarot reading on air live. So it should be pretty fun. I had a blast the last time I went on. It was super, super fun. And I was honestly like high as a kite on adrenaline for like a month after I did the show. It was just so much fun. So do tune in if you get the chance. And if you are not up that late, definitely catch the replay whenever it happens to be up. So Coast to Coast AM, it's going to be super fun. I'm really excited. What else? On YouTube, you guys, I am doing my tarot for the month ahead. So I used to do them every week, but that honestly is just too much. And I like to think in terms of months. So you can check out the January tarot for the month ahead, January 2025, over on YouTube. My YouTube is youtube.com/Sabrina Scott, and just click live, and you'll see all the live streams I've done. And you'll also be able to see the schedule for the rest of the year. So if you do want to attend live any of those tarot for the month ahead, maybe get some questions answered or a personal card, you can put those in your calendar and subscribe so that YouTube will let you know when I'm going live and you can, show up and just see what the vibe is. So I'm really, really excited for that. That should be super fun. And what else? I guess that's it for now, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Of course, my website is sabrinamscott.com. You can grab some cute merch at shopsabrinamscott.com. I honestly, my gray toque with my name on it, my little logo is I wear that pretty much every time I leave the house. And I would encourage you to go check out some of the stuff because we're still in winter time over here. There's some really cute hats. And what else? My Instagram, as you guys probably know, is Sabrina M. Scott. So go on over there and say hello. And that's it for now, you guys. And if you want to suggest a episode topic, feel free to do so. I'm really excited to be back doing the podcast again, and it has honestly been too long, but having the new/old name back just brings me so much joy and inspiration. So you guys can expect me to be a little bit more active on here than I have been. Okay, guys, much love. I'm sending you guys good energy, and I will catch you guys on the flip side. Take care. Bye.